Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Chapter 13. The Great Glass Lift. Mr. Wonka remarks that all the children are disappearing, but no one should worry because they will all be fine. He sizes up the remaining group and suggests moving on. Mike TV says he is tired and wants to watch television. Mr. Wonka replies that since Mike is tired, they should all take the elevator. He leads them into an elevator with 1,000 buttons on each wall and the ceiling. Charlie notices that each button is labeled with a room name. Mr. Wonka explains that the elevator can travel in any direction and that it is made entirely of glass to allow for full viewing. Grandpa Joe reacts in wonder. Mike TV says there is nothing to see. Mr. Wonka tells the children to hurry up and pick a button. Mike asks if there is a television room. Mr. Wonka points to the room button and Mike pushes it gleefully. The elevator takes off sideways, knocking over everyone except Mr. Wonka. Mr. Wonka helps a screaming Mrs. TV to her feet and instructs everyone to hold on to a strap. Charlie cannot reach, he holds tight to Grandpa Joe's legs. Mrs. TV fears the roller coaster ride means the elevator is broken, but Mr. Wonka tells her to relax. Grandpa Joe checks to see if Charlie is all right, and Charlie responds that he loves the ride. Mrs. TV says she is going to be sick, so Mr. Wonka gives her his hat. Mike TV tells Mr. Wonka to stop the elevator. He explains that it will not stop until it reaches the destination and then wonders out loud if anyone else is using the elevator shaft from the other direction. This horrifies the TVs. Mr. Wonka says they are nearly at their destination and asks Mrs. TV not to soil his hat. A moment later the elevator stops. Mike TV wipes the sweat from his face and Mrs. TV refuses to ever ride the elevator again. As they exit, Mr. Wonka warns everyone to be very careful in the television room. The group exits the elevator and steps into a blindingly white room. He takes out dark glasses and tells everyone to wear them at all times. Protected by the glasses, Charlie looks around and sees a long white room. It is bare except for a camera at one end, which is surrounded by an army of Oompa Loompas, and a television set at the other end, which is manned by a single Oompa Loompa. The Oompa Loompas near the camera wear spacesuits. Mr. Wonka excitedly explains that the room is for testing television chocolate. When Mike TV asks what television chocolate is, Mr. Wonka demands that he stop interrupting. Mr. Wonka thinks that television is bad, but in small doses it can be okay. He notes that children always want endless amounts of it. Mike TV chimes in his agreement. When Mr. TV tells Mike to shut up, Mr. Wonka thanks him and goes on to explain his interpretation of how real television works. Mike TV disagrees with Mr. Wonka, who feigns deafness. When Mike persists, Mr. Wonka tells him he is a nice boy, but he talks too much. Mr. Wonka imagines spreading chocolate into every home in the same manner that television is spread. Mike TV declares it impossible, so Mr. Wonka does a demonstration. 6 Oompa Loompas carry in a barlet the size of a bed. Mr. Wonka explains that the chocolate has to start big, because, as with real television, the things shrink to fit the screen. He then calls for action but halts it to implore Mike TV to stand back. Mr. Wonka explains the danger of the camera and that the Oompa Loompas wear spacesuits to protect themselves from the rays. Again, Mr. Wonka calls for action, and the chocolate bar disappears. Mr. Wonka explains that it is traveling overhead in a million pieces and rushes everyone over to the television. The chocolate bar appears on screen and Mr. Wonka tells the children to take it. Mike TV laughs at Mr. Wonka, saying he cannot take a picture off of a screen. Mr. Wonka then orders Charlie to take it and Charlie does so, though he nearly drops it out of astonishment. Mr. Wonka tells Charlie to eat the chocolate while Grandpa Joe exclaims his amazement. Mr. Wonka explains he will use television chocolate to advertise his chocolate directly into people's homes and hands. Grandpa Joe is astounded,